I just completed my third rotation of residency, and I'm already tired. Hi guys, my name is Wanu, and I made the transition from aerospace engineering to medicine. And all I have to tell you is, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm joking. If this is what you want to do, then absolutely do it. I'm very happy, but on some days I'm also very tired.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
My first rotation was in the surgical ICU, and on that rotation I was working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thankfully, my schedule was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Officially, residents only have 4 days off in a month. You heard that right, 4 days off in a month. And there are certain programs that enforce that. So you either work 6 days on and then you have 1 day off and do that for 4 weeks, or you can work 12 days on and then you would have 2 days off. Thankfully, my ICU rotation was not like that. Instead of working 6 days in a row, I would typically work like 3 days, then I get 2 days off, and then I'd work like 4 days, then I get a day off, and then 3 days again, a day off, however it went. But in total, I think I only had 18 or 19 shifts. I didn't count, but it wasn't bad. I would typically wake up at about 4:30 in the morning. I'd be out of my place at about 5:15, so I could get to work 5:45 or 5:50 and be ready to start at 6 a.m. And then I'd get back home at about 7, sometimes a little later, and I would try to be in bed at about 9:30. So it did not feel like there was a lot of time to just live, honestly. It genuinely felt like I was waking up, working, coming home, sleeping, waking up, working, coming home, sleeping, and I was just in that cycle. On the days when I worked, or in those 3 or 4 days that I worked, I didn't do anything other than work. As I said though, I'm very thankful because I didn't have the regular schedule of only having 1 day off in a week. After that rotation, I went to the Pediatrics department, and for that entire month I was on nights. So I was working from 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. Yeah. The negative of working nights is quite obvious. You're working in the night. You're supposed to be sleeping. You are on a different schedule than the rest of the world, essentially. I thought that ICU was just a cycle of working and sleeping, but night shift, that's the real work and sleep cycle. Because 5 p.m., 6 a.m., work, get home about 7 a.m., go to bed, almost immediately most times because you are exhausted. And then wake up at like 3, 4, depending, 3:30 most days. Get ready, come back. There were a few days when after working, I would actually go to the gym. I don't know how I did it, but I had energy. For whatever reason, on those mornings, I had a burst of energy. I'd only go to the gym for like 30 minutes though, and then I'd come home and then I would crash. That month was also not terrible because I only had 14 shifts. So I worked 7 days on, then I got 7 days off, and then I worked 7 days on again. I do wish that I had had more like 4 days on and then maybe 3 days off, instead of working 7 days in a row, because by night 5 it was rough. By night 6 I was hanging on to the hem of Jesus's garment. By night 7, I was out the door as quickly as I could be. I was ready to go home. I had no more empathy to give. I had no more strength to give. I had no more smiles to give. I was tired, but I did it. And I got through that month. Now, my most recent rotation was on the endocrine service, and I almost felt like a normal person. I was working from about 7:30 to, it varied. The latest I was at the hospital was about 6:30. So still almost a 12-hour shift. But the mere fact that I was leaving my place around the same time as regular people, that made me pretty happy. And some days I did get home at about 4, 5. Let's say 5. I don't think I ever got home before 4. I was still getting home at about 5. So that gave me some time to go to the gym, make dinner, read a book, whatever it was I wanted to do until I went to bed at about 10 p.m. The endocrine service is different because it's a consult service, which means we're only called to take care of specific things. An example would be a patient who is admitted for surgery who also has diabetes. We would be consulted to manage the patient's diabetes. The primary team could manage it, but especially with complicated cases, the endocrinologists are the experts, so they get called to take care of the person's diabetes or thyroid disease, whatever endocrine disease that patient has. The positive is you're only taking care of one aspect of the patient's disease, and they're not primarily your patient. They still are your patient, but there's a primary service that's in charge of their overall care. Another positive, like I said, was I had relatively normal hours. The negative with endocrinology, though, was I couldn't predict what my day was going to be. It could be 7:30 to 4, or it could be 7:30 to 7. Another negative was the fact that we can be called by any service in the hospital. So sometimes the patient was a 5-minute walk away, and other times your patient was a 15-minute walk away. It just depends, and you have to go see your patient. So that was tiring. But overall, it was a good experience. So why am I tired? Because it adds up. At the end of the day, working on different services every month means that you have to learn a new system every month. The minute I started getting used to taking care of transplant patients, I was switched to the pediatric service. Once I started getting used to taking care of kids, I was switched to the endocrine service. And I have taken care of kids before. I have taken care of, diabetes before, but never on the level of them being my patient. I'm no longer the medical student. I'm one of the doctors now. And that, it takes a little getting used to. And it's a new mental load that you didn't really carry as a student. And also, even though I mentioned that I was getting home at normal hours when I was on the endocrine service, the actual shift, the actual work that I did was really tiring. You sometimes try to comfort yourself by telling yourself that residency is only 4 years. And yes, it's going to be a grueling 4 years, but at least once you're done with residency, you'll be an attending and it'll be easier. But sometimes I look at my attendings and they look more tired than I am. And I think it's almost like a race that never ends. Once you're done achieving one thing, there's something else to achieve. Once you've graduated, once you've gotten into medical school, now you have to do medical school. Once you've graduated from medical school, now you have residency. Once you're done with residency, now you perhaps have to do fellowship. Once you're done with that and you're an attending, all good and fine, your schedule is better, but the decisions you make now carry more weight. And I think this goes for everything in life where there's always a new struggle. But sometimes with medicine, I just want to be a normal person some days. In line with that, I think sometimes as humans, we draw strength from people around us. So when you're feeling beaten down, you look at the people around you and the fact that they're doing it, so you know what, I can do it too. But sometimes the people around me are not doing it, or are barely doing it. I mean, they're barely making it. There are so many unhappy people in healthcare. There's so many unhappy doctors. Now I'm seeing more and more people cut down on hours, go find something that's outpatient, so you're not working in the hospital, you're working in the offices. I've just seen it happen so much that I feel as though that career that I was so excited about is just wearing everybody out. And the conversation sometimes is not, oh, how can we better care for patients? How can we be better doctors? It's not centered around being a doctor anymore. It's centered around, how can I make the most money while working the least number of hours? Mind you, also, I forgot to mention this. I'm still taking exams. So we took step 1 and 2 while in medical school, but in your first year of residency, you have to take step 3. Step 1 and 2 are 1-day exams. Step 3 is a 2-day exam. So I'm still coming home on most days, and despite the fact that I'm tired, I somehow have to figure out how to still study, or I try to incorporate it during my workday. But that doesn't happen often because I don't have a lot of downtime. So we're still studying, and even after I take step 3, I then have in-training exams. So every resident has exams specific to their specialty. So I'll be taking anesthesiology exams at least once a year. So there's a lot of moving parts. I'm not just a full-time worker. Now I'm almost a worker and I'm still a student to some extent. When I first got into medical school, I wanted to be an OBGYN. I wanted to do global health. I wanted to positively impact maternal health. But lately, I've thought less and less about that and more about how can I just rest? Now, I still think about those things. I still want to work back home in Nigeria. I still want to positively impact low-income communities. But the fact that I think about that so little now, and what I'm mostly thinking about is how to survive, really breaks my heart. So what am I doing now? Someone once said there's no such thing as work-life balance, there's only work-life integration. And I think that's what I'm trying to work towards. I'm trying to integrate work with studying, with having some fun every now and then, with resting, and health, and family. It just seems like so much. When I think about the fact that doctors are some of the saddest, most burnt out people in the world, it makes me sad because I wish that our field was a little happier. Okay, my vent is over. So while I was filming this video, I had to stop for a while because I needed to have a call with one of my mentors. And it's interesting that we got into a very similar conversation, being tired, being happy in medicine, or unhappy for some people. And I mentioned earlier in this video that sometimes it's even more tiring because you think about how tired you are now. You want to encourage yourself by telling yourself, this is a short-term thing. One day this will be over. I'll be in attending and better days are coming, essentially. But then you look at the attendings you're supposed to be looking up to, and they're even more tired, even more exhausted, even more burnt out than you. But speaking to her was an encouragement for me because she talked about how much she loves what she does. And of course there'll be bad days, and of course it's not always easy, and on some days you feel like it's not possible. But I just want you to enjoy residency. It was the breath of fresh air that I needed while actively making a video about being tired. So why did I make this video? To tell you that I was tired and don't do medicine? No. I made this video to be honest. I made this channel that is centered on becoming a doctor if you really feel like that is your calling. But at the same time, as I said in one of my other videos, medicine has its ups and downs. If this is what you want to do, do it. I'm fulfilled. I know I'm exactly where I need to be, but I'm still tired. And I know I'm going to be tired for a very long time. If this is what you're working towards, even as a student, you will be tired. But if this is where you're truly supposed to be, then keep at it. If you have ever felt this way, if you have ever felt like it's an endless cycle of work and no rest, please leave a comment because I know I'm not the only one. I know somebody else somewhere feels this way. And I would really like to commiserate over our shared tiredness. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.